Okay, we got questions. Let's go for it.
We do. It's Bring It On time. And Pat, this first one is from Lane, who says, can you give me some insight on UFOs and Bigfoot? People have seen strange phenomena, and not just crazy people. Teddy Roosevelt said he saw a UFO. Are these things demonic? Are they part of the strange signs that will accompany the end times?
I think they're generally a weather balloon. They're a flight of airplanes. There are reflections off a cloud bank. There are all kinds of things. As far as Bigfoot, there may be some ape-like creatures running around in the woods. I don't think it's a sign of anything, except there's some ape-like creatures, hairy creatures. Well, I mean, big apes. I mean, I don't know what they are. I've never seen Bigfoot. But don't build into that anything more than you have to. And most of the people that see this are delusional, or they're not delusional, but their eyes are being are deceiving them. All right.
Okay, this is Robert, who says, I am a Christian, and I believe that God created the world. I've had friends try to stump me by asking about Cain's wife and where she came from. I've heard other Christians say that Cain's wife was also his sister. But I say, how do we know God didn't just keep on creating? What do you think about that theory?
Well, the Bible says nothing but God kept on creating because it wasn't necessary. He made a couple and he gave them the ability to reproduce. Look, the prohibition against incest was in the Old Testament, in the the book of Leviticus is very clear about incest, but it said these things the nations did before you got there. I think the problem about incest primarily had to do with the genetic makeup of people, and flaws would be magnified if people of the same family kept breeding together. You'd get genetic malformations. But it was against the law because the law came. But early there was no law that prohibited that, and I don't think there's any question that Cain got married to a sister. I just don't think there's any question about it. And I don't think God kept on creating people he didn't need to. So, I mean, that's all I can say. Go ahead.
This is Debra, who says, so I was watching this television show where a pastor is wrangling snakes during the service. He says the Bible commands him to do so. Is this true? It seems a little odd.
Hey, you know, they've got a show now called, what is it, Snake Salvation or something? It's a whole show. And I had one guy on, he was so funny. He was in a service where they, quote, handled the serpent, and he didn't know what was happening. And suddenly they wanted to hand him one of those rattlesnakes, and he's in no way. All right. This may shock some of you, ladies and gentlemen, but those of us who have studied what is called textual criticism, I'm not talking about form criticism, I'm talking about text. So you try to say, what is the best text to translate? And there's certain principles we follow, or the experts follow, and people like me get taught, what you translate. And in the book of Mark, the best manuscripts that are available stop before you get to that part about snakes and drinking deadly, that isn't in the best manuscripts. It just isn't there. So it's an add-on, and we've had a lot of problem because that add-on. But there's no commandment that says you're supposed to go handle snakes. But it said they shall tread on deadly serpents, they won't hurt them. But it doesn't mean you go in to have a service and have a box full of rattlesnakes. That's even if it were. But that is not in the best manuscripts that have come to us to translate. So okay?
So no snakes today.
No snakes, all right.
This is a viewer who says, recently you said that mediums are communicating with demons, but I watched a TV show the other day and the medium claimed she only talks with, quote, spirits who walk in God's white light. She seems like a very positive Christian woman. What's your opinion on this?
If anybody who speaks with spirits and those that mutter, there's no truth in them, I'm sorry. This white light stuff, I mean, it is very appealing. And that Long Island medium is another whole show about her. Very nice lady, very attractive, very reasonable, what they say. I'm talking to your dead father and so forth. And he told me that, you know, I'm happy where I am. Listen. The dead do not communicate with the living. They just don't. They don't come back and tell us stuff. They don't go around clanking chains and doing all that and moaning and groaning. I mean, they just don't. But there are spirits. There are demonic spirits, and there's such thing as familial spirits that come like dressed up like Aunt Susie, and they'll tell you things, and they will speak to you, and they'll be very convincing, and you might see white lights, you might see all kinds of things. But it isn't of God. That's all I can say. This is not of God. It is prohibited in the Old Testament, and in the Old Testament, witches and mediums were burned to death. That's why the witch of Endor is the only one I'm familiar with who brought up a spirit. And she brought up Samuel, and she was scared half to death when she saw him, because she realized she was talking to the king, and the king was going to kill her. And he said, look, I'm not going to kill you. Just, you've done what I asked you, and, let me get out of here. But that's the only case I'm aware of. But the witches in those days were burned to death in the Old Testament, not in the New Testament. All right, go ahead.
That's all the time we have for today, but we do thank you for your questions.